This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the February 1st REMAC meeting, our first one this year. I'm going to share my screen so we can do the Pledge of Allegiance. But prior to doing that, just a reminder, if you want to speak, and since nobody has their camera on, which I will put mine on, if you do have that capability, it would be greatly appreciated to have your camera on so we could kind of see if you have a comment. If not, you will have to put something into the chat box to let us know that you want to make a comment. So I got to find my share screen here so we can do the pledge. Again, you can keep your phones on mute, but I would ask you to join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I get the flag up there. Everybody should be able to see it. If you can please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I have to find my screen back here. All right, I've lost my screen share. Hold on just a second, I'm sorry. There we go. I flip back between Zoom and GoToMeeting and I forget where the buttons are on GoToMeeting. All right. So thank you, everyone. The October 2020 minutes were emailed out to the membership. What I am going to do is ask if anybody has any discussion or if anybody does not want them approved. And we will take that as all in favor if there's no abstentions or no's for the approval. So is there any discussion on the October 2020 minutes that were emailed out to everybody? Hearing anything? Nothing, excuse me. Was there any abstentions? All right. I'm going to conclude that the October 2020 minutes are approved as written. Moving on to DOH correspondence. Debbie, would you please share those with us?
I certainly will. There's a few of them this time. So the first one is from November 17th. Brian McIntyre from Long Beach, New York, surrendered effective 11/3/20 for violations of 10 NYCRR Part 800.16A8. December 15th, Hartfield Volunteer Fire Company in Mayville, New York, suspended for 1 year effective 12/8/20. The suspension is stayed pending no new violations for 2 years. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violation of Public Health Law A30-3012D, Public Health Law A3306, and 10 NYCRR Part 800.15. December 29th, Christopher Foy from Central Square, suspended for 1 year effective 12/18/20. The suspension is stayed pending no further violations for 3 years. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violation of 10 NYCRR Part 800.15A1 and 2 and 800.32. Next one, January 28th, Faritz Bartov from Staten Island, surrendered effective 1/17/21 for violations of 10 NYCRR Part 800.16A10. January 19th, Newark Arcadia Volunteer Ambulance in Newark, New York. Suspended for 1 year effective 12/22/20. The suspension is stayed pending a full service inspection and no further violations for 3 years. Assessed a civil penalty of $5,000. For violations of 10 NYCRR Part 800.21B and G, 800.23A, D, E, and F, 800.5D3, 800.24C, 42, C, 43, E1 through 6, 800.24F15, F4, H11, H5, H7, H8, and Public Health Law A3300 or 3012 1B. That is all of them.
Thank you. It's quite a handful. Any questions on the DOH enforcement list? Hearing none and seeing none in the chat, I'll be moving on to correspondence. So we did receive an application for Dr. Holliday. And since he is here with us, I'm going to put him on the spot if he wants to tell us a little bit about himself. And then at the end of the meeting is when we'll vote on that. So Dr. Holliday, you'd like to introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jordan Holliday. I am currently working at SUNY Upstate, where I did my residency training as well as completing a 1-year EMS fellowship. Just graduated in 2019, so I'm still relatively new. I am hoping to bring some of my fellowship training to the region, as well as learn from people who have much more experience than myself currently.
And he will be, he is on the agenda farther down as well, as a change of medical director for Guilfoyle Ambulance. So thank you very much. And as I said, we will vote on your application at the end, Dr. Holliday. Any questions for Dr. Holliday from the group?
Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Whoops, I'm sorry, Dr. Snicer, I spoke over you.
I just said glad to have you.
All right, moving on. We have received multiple surge diversions for hospitals that are overflowing and moving patients out due to COVID. They have not affected any of our local ones, so I have not sent them out to everybody to bombard your emails, but we are tracking those. Multiple correspondence regarding EMS providers' ability to vaccinate for COVID and the training programs, etc. And today I shared with you an EPCR letter that I'm sure there may be further discussion on towards the end of the meeting. And I also sent out all of the Air Medical 2020 reports under correspondence. So I'd like to take this opportunity, and I do see that Colleen and Matt are both with us. If either of you have a report or want to speak about anything about Air Medical.
All right, it's Matt. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Just a quick little rundown. As far as our education days goes, we've transitioned everything to virtual. Our winter webinar went so successfully that the spring education day that we typically offer in person, we're also going to transition that to virtual and maintain its free status to provide CMEs to supporters, anybody that's interested. You know, we were upwards over 300 people at the last one, so it's gaining popularity pretty quickly. Otherwise, we're pretty status quo, just kind of anticipating those snowmobile accidents up in the North Country and kind of maintain level. But other than that, everything's good. If anybody has any questions for me, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Matt. Do you have anything, Colleen?
Good evening, everybody. I met with Lewis County 911 and Office of Emergency Management. I met with Jefferson County and also St. Lawrence County and reviewed all the data that you kindly put in for everyone to read. So I will spare going through each individual line on requests and transports. So thank you for doing that. And also I just wanted to let everybody know that we too are going to be offering free virtual education. Our first education night will be on March 10th at 1900 hours. You'll be able to get CEUs or CMEs for this. And again, it's free. And I believe our topic will be airway. So be on the lookout. We will be sending out registration information probably by the end of this week. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And again, if we get the notifications, we're always happy to blast those out to our subscribers.
Thank you.
Our newsletter. All right, state EMS, or anybody have any other correspondence that I may not have covered? Silence is golden. I'm guessing there isn't any, so we'll move on to state EMS meetings. Mr. Devers, would you care to give a report? And when you get to the protocols, I figured we'd deal with those under old business.
Sure, whatever you want. So CMAC and SEMSCO met the 13th and 14th. The highlights, and Jonathan has a copy of my notes and Ann's notes, but the quick highlights are alternative medication formulary. Regions can make the changes as needed, provided they're within some sort of standard guideline. There was quite a lengthy conversation over specific Tylenol dosing, and they decided that, really should be pushed to the region. I will do the protocol changes last. The state is continuing to improve its testing process. Coming sometime this year, original paramedic students will be required to take the national registry exam and pass it as part of the credentialing process. And at this point, that is not set in stone for paramedic refreshers or any other level of care. It is just paramedic original students. Also, there's changes to the paramedic practical skills exam where they're requiring a registry rep. So they want modifications to ensure that retesting can be done in one day if possible. There's a supraglottic airway demo for BLS providers, specifically in cardiac arrest, and it requires the iGel and some other minor modifications to the request from a agency out of Hudson Valley that they're trying to push statewide to get plenty of numbers for. The region is willing to host or kind of monitor the data, do the data collection for it. With the removal of intubation from AEMT and kind of looking into the future, supraglottic airways are probably not a bad idea to hop on this demo for agencies that want to participate to get as much data as we can and see where the future takes us. Some other quick highlights, they're updating the documentation standards. The data department seems to be the only growing department in the health department. And there's some free EPCR options for agencies that meet specific guidelines. Kathy Burns, who was a trauma program manager, has retired. Dan Clayton, who was the deputy director of operations, will be taking over her place. And it sounds like they're going to be splitting up some of his duties, at least on a temporary basis. There are weekly operational calls. I believe they're Thursdays at 4 right now, and bi-weekly, of course, sponsor calls. If anybody would like to get an invite to those calls who's not already, get a hold of Anna and we'll make sure we get you on a list. I'm sure we're going to talk about vaccinator training, but there is a vaccinator training program that's online, and then there's a psychomotor portion that needs to be covered by somebody at a pod or somebody who's credentialed. And I know we're working on a plan for that at the regional level. There's some struggles with both program agency contracts and REMSCO contracts are in various levels of state contracting approval, and I believe ours are no different. There seems to be a significant increase in COVID exposures amongst EMS crews statewide. One of the things that they continue to say is they are not getting complaints of providers not wearing proper PPE on responses. It's other times, and that also seems to be, at least locally, where a good portion of the isolation or the quarantines come from are not wearing PPE at the stations or on the way back from the call, et cetera, where there's a confirmed exposure. The Department of Health issued a policy statement update on December 26th that modifies return to work for exposed persons and removes kind of that exemption without an actual application for an exemption to the commissioner for frontline workers. So it used to be if somebody was exposed, and didn't have proper PPE on, as long as they were asymptomatic, they could work. The current policy statement says they have to quarantine for 10 days, and if they're asymptomatic, they can return to work. And there is a way to apply to the Department of Health for a waiver of that, and it's whether or not it'll be approved is a question. And there's some pretty substantial changes coming over the next couple of years to Part 800, which is a minimum equipment list that Jonathan also has that document. The process for it is it's got to go to the commissioner, then come and go through some legislative stuff and legal affairs, et cetera. And then it comes back to SEMSCO for a final approval vote. So the rollout on that is probably a year away. Now to the exciting protocol changes, some of which, we have to look at as a REMAC. First and foremost, under the hemorrhage protocol, and Jonathan, if you have them and want to throw them up, it wouldn't be horrible. Under the hemorrhage protocol, they've approved PXA and blood transfusions, 1 unit of type O negative, if it falls in line with the hemorrhage protocol. This does require a training program, the formal protocol change, and regional approval by the REMAC. It sounds like the CMAC is going to be providing the education for it. I would expect that any deliverance of blood in a pre-hospital setting would have some sort of Wadsworth requirements to it, so that's probably going to be substantially delayed. However, there seems to be a pretty significant desire to push PXA out relatively quickly. There's also a medical control option for non-traumatic issues such as GI bleeds and postpartum hemorrhages, etc. The changes are highlighted in red and yellow on the protocol that's up on the screen currently. And I think I hit the highlights of that one. And do you want to cover the protocols one by one or as a group, or how do you want me to do them?
I don't care. I can keep pulling them up as you talk about them. I mean, we'll have to go back and do the ones that we have to truly do something with.
Okay. The next one is modifications to the nausea protocol. And it's allowing BLS providers and ALS providers to have patients self-administer alcohol prep pad for relief of nausea. There is a fair amount of evidence and data that says it works, and it has worked in plenty of circumstances, and it's something that has been around for quite a while. there was a lengthy conversation at medical standards about how the data came out in the late 90s on this, and we did not act on it. There's
I'm a
changes.
little behind you here. I thought I had it up on my screen, but apparently I lost that one.
I've got it here, and I can share real quick.
All
I've
right,
got
so
it.
interestingly enough, this protocol was a result from information that a provider from the North Country submitted through our portal on the website, and they did a great job submitting it, as well as providing the background information to it. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Any questions on that one?
Scroll down, Jonathan, so they can see it in case it's covered by their bar. So really, that's the only change there at the bottom. Patients may be given the isopropyl alcohol pad for self-administered inhalation. Okay, go ahead, Jonathan. You're doing a good job, Sharon. Keep up with them.
The next protocol change is the excited delirium protocol.
Keep going.
Basically, they are requiring some wording changes. Required waveform capnography when safe on any patient who has been chemically sedated under the excited delirium protocol, mostly to monitor respiratory status. And that is something that I believe every ALS agency already has on their ambulance, and it's been a standard of care for quite a while. Epistaxis protocol.
That's a new one.
They have added it, they've created the protocol for it, and allowing basically Afrin to be administered for uncontrolled nosebleed.
Just one comment on all of these new protocols. They are not in effect. Agencies, please don't go buy stuff. They must be approved by the Commissioner of Health, and the protocol app and whatever else needs to be updated, and education needs to be done. So stay tuned for a rollout. And as Mike McAvoy said, maybe the Easter Bunny will bring it.
The next one is airway and oxygen administration. They have just changed the required SpO2 from to 92% to align with the AHA guidelines, and requires a viral filter for any patient who has either endotracheally intubated or supraglottic airway. The final protocol conversation was incredibly lengthy over needle size for New York City's vaccination protocol.
I don't think you need to pull that one up. It's not relevant to our region.
So other than that, unless anybody has any questions, that is the CMAC and SEMSCO report.
Not a question, just a comment. At the beginning of this pandemic, we made the recommendation that all agencies utilize viral filters with their BVMs, and we actually supplied some to agencies. and they should not be purchasing them without the viral filters at this point of the game in the pandemic. And hopefully they've been able to obtain supplies for those BVMs that they may have had in stock without one to be able to use them. But again, it's very important that they think about using them whenever they have to utilize a BVM. Any questions for Mark? The next state meetings are not.
I'm sorry, and do we want to discuss the letter that we sent down and the intubation with our advanced providers so that everybody on here knows?
I have it on my report.
Oh, okay.
He talked about it quick. Like, I do just want to verify, Ryan, is that Dr. Coates?
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I'll do it my report, Debbie. Hearing no other questions for Mark on the state meeting. So RSI testing status, this was something that was on the agenda last time. It was kind of tabled because I didn't get the information out. So I did send out just a reminder. I sent out our RSI policy statement, and we do have 3 agencies that are up for approval, which is our first 3 agency applications, which is Governor Rescue, Lewis County Search and Rescue, and Guilfoyle. I will turn any further discussion over to the chair of the RSI committee, which is Mark. And then we'll figure out where we're going from here, because I do believe there's a couple questions in regards to, we haven't been able to do the difficult airway, and we haven't been able to do annual tests. So you can take it from there, Mr. Devers.
All right. So we do have the 3 applications for the agencies. The requirement does have a airway class requirement, either difficult airway that we provide as a region or something that is regionally approved at this moment. We have not seen any curriculums from any agencies looking for approval of their own educational program. The testing due to COVID has obviously been delayed. One of the conversations that has been out there is trying to just get everybody maybe into a central area, into Watertown, and see if we can get with Dr. Gray or Dr. Maynard or another REMAC physician to run through some testing, and with the approval of this body to meet the requirements of the policy statement.
Mark, it's Maya. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, Maya, how are you?
Good, thank you. Good evening. I just had a question looking at the documents that Ann sent us. So if there has been no difficult airway class, nor is there one available to you to sign up for, is there something locally that can be done? Because I feel kind of strong that those who want this credentialing capability need to go through some kind of airway class, and I was wondering if you had explored any options locally.
We have offered the class, and all 3 agencies have had people attend the class. We have not offered a class in give or take a year because of the pandemic. With that being said, if there is a need to, of the agencies to have those people, there's I believe a 2-year certification with that class. If there is a need to recertify or do the class, we will make those arrangements. it is a possibility to run the difficult airway class. We have just not had any real interest because of COVID.
So you're asking us to approve the applications for these 3 organizations because
Yes.
because those interested parties have already attended the difficult airway class and now they need to be tested in addition to whatever else is on that checklist. Is that correct?
Yes, keep in mind that there's an agency credentialing, and then, you know, the providers are approved separately through a testing process. So this is not carte blanche for any agency to have every single provider just tomorrow morning be able to RSI. They still have to have a testing, the providers themselves still have to meet the testing requirements and educational requirements. So it is specific to the agency and then also to the provider.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I will be, you know, working with the committee to try and, you know, track those people and ensure that they also, I believe, have their specific continuing medical education that's required as well.
Yes, there's a specific number of airway hours that are required on a regular basis as well.
You need a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion to allow Governor Rescue Squad, Guilfoyle, Lewis County Search and Rescue to proceed with the RSI capability for their agency.
I have a motion on the floor by Dr. Gray. Is there a second to that motion? I have a
Second.
I think it was Dr. Coates hit the button quicker than Dr. Cartier, so Dr. Coates gets the second to that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I would like a roll call of the physicians on this one.
Thank you, everybody.
Jonathan, can you do over here if you want me to?
I can do it. I've got it.
Okay.
Dr. Cartier,
Yes.
Dr. Coates,
Yep.
Dr. Delaney,
Yes.
Dr. Heiss,
Yes.
Dr. Howland,
Yes.
Dr. Gray,
Yes.
She made the motion.
thanks, Ann. Dr. Snicer,
Yes.
that is all the docs on the call.
That are current members, Dr.
That are
Ho-
current members.
We didn't want you to feel left out, Dr. Holliday. At least for the next few minutes, then you'll be a member. All right, so that concludes RSI testing. So the protocols, I know I had this under old business. We did go through them on the state EMS meeting. They are part of the collaborative, which we did agree to. But the one item that we do need to discuss is the TXA because that is a regional option. That, I do believe, was the only protocol I saved off for the presentation. But Jonathan, if you want to share the TXA protocol again, we can have some further discussion on that as to whether to regionally approve it or not. And Mark, can you talk a little more to the blood? I saw that you sent something last minute that we just got.
Yes, sorry. So the blood, keep in mind the blood is regulated through the Department of Health through Wadsworth, and it's, I would assume under this protocol that we're going to see some different requirements in order to carry blood on an ambulance, including some form of a different ATS would be my best guess. I don't know that 100%, but just based off of the history with Wadsworth and how stuff has gone. That being said, and John, if you can bring up the PDF on ATS, I'm guessing this is what you want me to talk about, Ann?
I don't know. I haven't even had, and do we need to talk about it at this meeting? I haven't had opportunity to read it because I received it right before the meeting.
I can, or I can do it quick under new business was kind of my plan.
Okay, we'll do it under new business if you want to just talk about the TXA. And
Sure.
Jonathan,
So
can you make that a little bigger, your screen, there you go.
there is a fair amount of data supporting TXA administration in patients with traumatic hemorrhage and in some cases with non-traumatic hemorrhage, and some pretty good clinical outcomes, and again, specific instances with it. With this protocol, according to CEMAC and the time frame and the rollout between collaborative, the commissioner's approval, and everything else is at best a question mark. But they are going to look for regional approval, and I would assume credentialing on TXA, or at least notification of agencies. And they will be providing the education, again, according to them. So at this moment, this protocol as a whole really focuses on TXA, mostly because of the regulatory standpoint. I would expect some additional hoops to be needed to be jumped through for agencies that want to carry blood on their vehicles.
I think the biggest reason for bringing it up at this meeting is because we're not sure how long it's going to take for them to roll this out. But because we're only meeting quarterly, we'd rather have the discussion now and have it approved or disapproved, so we know how to move forward if that comes out mid-REMAC meeting, if that makes sense.
And if I could, I'd like to make some comments on TXA.
Whoops, go ahead, Dr. Cartier. And I also want to thank him for being part of this discussion at the state level.
Yeah, not a problem. Hey, a couple of things about this. This is the first time I've had a chance to look at this this protocol. The dosing is, the time frame for the dosing is not indicated on there. So that's obviously an issue with the protocol in and of itself. So if we do approve it at a regional level, I think a policy statement may be necessary to make sure that we're giving TXA no more than 3 hours from time of injury, because it tends to have worse outcomes if we give it outside of that time frame. So that would be one concern I have with it. And one thing that we may consider, but I'd leave this up for discussion and certainly wouldn't be a mandatory thing. TXA is something that we generally use in the military for box wounds, so anything in the chest or abdomen. It works good for small spine bed bleeds, like in the intestines and lungs and liver and all those other places that like to have small little bleeders, but it's not super great for big hemorrhage out from an extremity or whatnot. I don't know that it's going to be a big deal. It's probably not going to harm anybody if we give it for an extremity hemorrhage that's bad enough off that, you know, we're thinking that they're going to need to get blood or something like that. But that may be something we would consider putting in the policy statement for the TXA as well.
Great, thank you. And I can also pass on the comment for the time frame to the collaborative group. And it may be included within the education that they make. So any further discussion on TXA?
And quick question.
Yes.
The way the protocol's written, would this be that you have to give blood first before the TXA, or is there I don't see any key points or anything, whether you need to give the blood or TXA can be given without, but the blood does show up before the TXA?
Yeah, as far as I know, and Mark, I don't know if you do, that is not order specific.
I got to call him back. To my knowledge, that is not order specific. Again, I see TXA being rolled out as soon as the protocol is approved by the commissioner and the education piece is done. I would be very, very, very surprised if there's not some additional regulatory requirements in a significant delay before blood would even become an option in any form of 911 setting.
Does that answer your question?
I guess. Wait for more to come out.
Again, I believe there'll be further guidance as we get the education on this, but as far as getting blood, we are still working on getting the transfusion guidelines done just for ambulances to transport it on inner facilities, and maybe Mark will have some good news. We'll see what he's got to tell us at the end, but we have learned that is not a fast process whatsoever.
And don't the helicopters use that? I didn't know if Colleen or Matt share, I believe they use TXA. Have they had any issues? Do they think it's good to be used by ground transport in the field?
I can speak to that a little bit. It's Mark Tuttle. Is that okay, Ann?
Yep, Mark, if you want to talk about it, and then I think Matt was trying to get in there, but I'll let you go first, Mark.
Okay. Just in general, yes. Air Medical has been using TXA for as long as I've been flying, for close to 8 years, and it definitely has purpose. I think that it's important to work with your local trauma center to, ultimately figure out if they use it or not, because some trauma centers don't. But to the comments relative to blood, Air Methods made an initiative a couple of years back that they wanted all of their community-based helicopters across the country to ultimately carry blood. And I'll give you one guess what state is left that is not carrying blood yet, and it would be New York State. Dr. Gray actually probably could speak to it more so than I, because she's been actively involved in the process, but we've been working diligently for a couple of years. Ultimately, it requires a legislative change, because legislative changes have ultimately been on hold except for COVID and finance. It's kind of been at a standstill for several months now, but if the pandemic can come to some normalcy, we're hoping maybe this summer to be able to do that here in New York State. But at this point, to carry blood is a very long, complicated, and ambiguous process.
Yeah, I'll jump on to what Mark said. This is Maya Gray. As far as TXA goes, I wholeheartedly support Dr. Cartier's comments. This protocol really needs to be revised to insert not only time parameters, but also I think a cleaner version of hemodynamic instability. And so, happy to share our policy. It's Samaritan. I'm sure everyone's is based off the 2 studies that Dr. Cartier talked to. And every drug has its complications and side effects. And so knowing that, and looking at risk versus benefit, and with the patient in front of you, great drug to use, particularly in a rural area. And I would be an advocate for grounds starting it if all parameters are met. As far as blood goes, I've been working for 6 years with Bill Stuba and others at Air Methods to get blood at our community bases, as Mark alluded to. So we have gone through meeting with legislation, and in principle, they recognize we need it in our rural area. They recognize the transport to our regional trauma center for our sickest patients is really long, and blood can be life-saving. However, as Mark alluded to, everything is halted. We keep meeting with them. So there's the legislation change that has to happen, and then the what has to happen at the base level is really intensive, and the legislation change needs to happen in order for all of us to be able to carry blood if it's the right thing for your base. So high tech, very expensive refrigerators with central monitoring and alarm systems, contracts with hospitals for replenishment of the blood, policies, procedures, and the list goes on. And each base has to hire their own pathologist. So fiscal resources, because ED doctor can't sign off on blood in the state's eyes. And so there are no pathologists who have any desire to want to line up with one base at a time. So there's lots of, as Mark alluded to, both Marks, Wadsworth has a lot of steps that need to go through. I don't see that happening anytime soon, and I'm really hopeful that the TXA will be passed soon. So thank you.
Hey, it's Matt. As far as TXA in our realm, we only implemented it after the most recent studies were released. But ultimately, I definitely would echo the need for this particular protocol to have the time constraint and maybe even the age considerations placed on there before it was implemented. But definitely wholeheartedly support it in the ground EMS realm, because it's definitely time to injury important and time sensitive as far as administration. So on that side of things, we did implement it just over a year ago, but ultimately haven't seen a whole lot of opportunity to administer just based on time from injury to intervention and age constraint issues. But otherwise, and the same thing goes for the blood administration and carrying capabilities. Everything that Maya just kind of alluded to is basically what's held us from pursuing that endeavor much further in depth until it becomes a little bit easier and less cumbersome process for us. But ultimately, definitely see the benefit and hope that someday that is an obtainable goal for everybody, including ourselves. But yeah, definitely Mark and everybody hit everything spot on.
So thank you. Just a comment on my end. So one of the challenges with the collaborative group is initially when we started this, they were pretty good about sending the stuff back to us. We've stomped and we've screamed about ensuring these protocols come back to our region for review before they go to the state. We had a collaborative meeting where all these things were discussed and then never heard anything else. And much to my surprise, these were written and on the agenda. So again, we're still trying to work through that collaborative process with the group, since we are on the collaborative protocols. And I will make those recommendations to the group. But as far as getting them, the protocol changed, I'm not sure how easy that's going to be. But we definitely can do a policy statement. But we will first shoot for the change. Any other comments or discussion on TXA? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to however the REMAC would like to proceed with this. from our physicians?
So moved.
Is that Dr. Sneisser? I'm sorry, I can't see everybody with the screen share up. You can probably get rid of that, Jonathan. It makes everybody, there we go. So I have a motion from Dr. Sneisser to proceed with TXA as if it is approved by the state and the education comes out.
I'll second it.
Second by Dr. Cartier. Okay, Jonathan, you want to do a roll call vote? The remaining physicians?
Dr. Coates,
Yes.
Dr. Delaney,
Yes.
Dr. Heiss,
Yes.
Dr. Howland,
Yes.
Dr. Gray,
Yes.
and the rest voted or were part of the motion.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. We will communicate as information becomes available regarding that. And Dr. Cartier, I may be reaching for your assistance with addressing the collaborative group regarding the couple of issues that you brought up.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay. Anything else with protocols that anybody has? All right. Moving on, just a quick update to the BLS 12 lead. All the items that we discussed last time were completed. The initiative was sent out to the agencies, but again, everybody is busy or in the midst of a pandemic, in case you hadn't heard. And we do not have any applications back at this time. And then difficult airway, Debbie, we already discussed it a little. Debbie, I don't know if you have anything more to add to that.
I have talked to Rudy a few times. He said if we wanted to try to do one virtual, that they would try to test our folks that need to keep their teaching to be able to do that. He obviously needs to see folks doing the skills, so I think that's something maybe we can take offline, and maybe we can set up some small groups with some social distancing and get a difficult airway class scheduled so that we could complete our contract.
All right, sounds good. Does anybody have any other old business that was not on the agenda or that I did not address? Okay, hearing none. Well, so Fast AD is on there, but that is in my report, so I will defer it to that. So quick discussion on Spring Fling. One thing that I just learned, so I had a discussion with, Debbie, I am gonna probably guess that we will not be at a point at the end of April that we can have the conference. Secondly, IAC scheduled the first or second weekend right after ours, which makes it difficult. It was hard enough when they scheduled in May, but when they schedule at the beginning of May, makes it even more difficult because the conferences are too close together. And third item, we received notice today from EMS Scanning, which is the vendor that we use for registrations for the vendors and for the participants. Last year, we had already started to get registrations in. So we decided to cancel everybody. We just refunded everybody their money. We weren't gonna wait until October and, try and just keep that going. We just refunded everybody so we'd start with a clean slate. We were just notified that if we do choose to open up set a date and open up registration, if we end up canceling it because, COVID hasn't cleared up enough for us to move forward with it, the participants may be subject to the 3.5% credit card cancellation fee, which they waived last year, but they can't guarantee that they would waive it again this year. So I just want to make sure that as we move forward in the REMSCO, we'll talk about it, the REMSCO as well, moves forward the planning, that spring fling is going to be a little bit of a challenge this year. So Debbie, do you have anything to add to that?
I have talked with Janine at Edgewood. She does not see it opening up in April either. She said that perhaps in the fall, and Ann and I had some conversations that if anything good has come out of this pandemic, it is that there's so many online free credit CMEs available to folks that they really don't need the lecture, that maybe we need to look at revamping the entire spring fling and having it be more of a hands-on type experience and let people come in and do skills and things. So I think there's some things that we can do. I think it's time. Ann has done a tremendous job, and you know, she started this back, what is it, 22 years ago, Ann? And I think
I'm not that old.
I think it's time that we look at maybe revamping it and trying to see what we can do to offer things that aren't available online, which would be hands-on and doing some different things to try to get the people to want to attend it. But Janine said, let me know what date you want to look at in the fall, and she would look at her calendar. Obviously, she's eager to have us because, you know, she's had a financial strain the last year and a half as well. So she wants to host us. She recognizes that April's probably not doable and has not even sent the contract because she just doesn't see it happening.
And the other thing to keep in the back of your mind is we may be challenged a little bit with prices in the fall, depending on when in the fall, because, you know, that can still be prime time. That was one of the reasons why IAC had to move away from the fall time frame, is because the cost was too extensive being in peak fall time, when a lot of the areas in Lake Placid, just as here in the North Country, get a lot of tourism to see the fall foliage. All right, so let me start my slideshow. Any other questions on spring fling? All right, let me share my screen here. All right, you guys see my screen okay? So the program agency report, these are the dates for the regional stroke and trauma advisory committees. They've been being held virtual instead of in Syracuse. As your representative for the RTAC, I will take the TXA protocol and ensure there's a discussion at the meeting for that. The last meeting in December was canceled due to COVID. So it's pretty much all I have for the RSTAC and RTAC. So behind the scenes, we have kept busy doing a lot of stuff on the stroke front. We worked with SUNY Upstate, Central New York, and North and us. And we created a FAST ED education video. This is an enhanced FAST ED. And the goal of this, we kind of moved away from, you know, FAST ED for recognition of large vessel occlusions, because they noted that there's a lot of posterior strokes that aren't being caught. So by enhancing the FAST ED a little bit, where they're looking for dizziness as well, may assist in the recognition of some strokes that may otherwise be missed. So we received some funding. We created the video, thanks to, I think it's 325 Productions out of Syracuse and SUNY Upstate who put the presentation together. It's a little less than 6 minutes. It has been well received to this point. We've heard some good comments. We will be doing a survey monkey to get more feedback regarding the video. There is a test in the online CNE database, and at this point, well, I think those stats that I put in the slide were the end of last week, so I'm sure it's higher now, but there was 491 providers that had taken the test between the two regions, and we have 14, well, actually, I think we got one today, and there's more coming from Central New York. So we have a little over 15 rosters in now of folks that have had, agencies that have had 50% of their primary providers complete the training. Again, we're cross-references against our database. And so on another front, it's helping us get our database cleaned up a little bit. So it's got kind of a twofold use. So, and 5 of those 14 rosters are from the North Country at this point. We also have shared that video with the Samaritan Stroke folks, and we have encouraged it to be shared as well among ER staff, so they have an idea when folks call and report. So we are starting to receive feedback. Samaritan Medical Center is a primary stroke center. They did provide us with feedback, and we have sent that out to the agencies. One of the challenges that we've had working with our partners in Syracuse is agency CQI contacts or leadership changes so frequently that every time the stroke or the trauma team out of Upstate tried to do feedback, they'd get a lot of emails that would come back to them. So with Samaritan, she's going to send me any feedback they have for the month, and then I will forward them out to agencies. We are asking, you know, we'd like to hear some feedback from the agencies if they feel this is helpful or not. Or if there's a different format or something that they would like to know. And I haven't received any feedback yet, but I just sent them out on Friday. So I think that is absolutely spectacular that we're getting this kind of feedback from a hospital. So we hope to see more of that as we move forward. Again, we also have a stroke quality group, which is specific to Upstate. The RSTAC is all the stroke, all of our stroke partners. So we do attend the stroke quality group quarterly. We had discussions at the last one that it should be opened up to other entities that routinely transfer patients, especially interfacility transports. So some of you may be seeing an invitation to join that as well, but they show us their dashboard and give us some really good information. New York State narcotic reporting. So the end of last year, sometime last year, I don't remember, it all kind of blurs together, we were advised on the agency calls and through some other correspondence that there was a new narcotic reporting form, and it was located on the Bureau of Narcotics website, not on the New York State website, Bureau of EMS website. So a few months go by in the midst of the pandemic, and everybody forgot, including me, that there was a new form for narcotic reporting. So we did get advised the other day that a lot of agencies had utilized the old form, which is what they went to the website and pulled. And some agencies had already got them signed, so they had to go back and do the new form and then resend them. At this point, I don't believe they are going to make you redo the form if you had already sent it prior to the time I sent the email out. But we blasted it out in every way, shape, form that we could So hopefully agencies will remember this 6 months from now. So, but that new form still only exists on the Bureau of Narcotics website, not on the Bureau of EMS. So we will probably get a link or something on our website to help our folks out. So agency renewals, we are now, which is very nice. So it helps us keep our database up to date. We are getting copied on the certificates of need as they are renewed. Before we had to rely on the agencies to send them to us. So it's actually been very helpful. This list has all been renewed, and today we received Messina Rescues in St. Lawrence County. We received theirs. So they didn't make the list because it came in today. One thing at the state level to make sure you're passing on if you're talking to agencies, there is no extension on your CON renewals. They must be submitted in a timely manner. And it's all submitted electronically now. If there are agencies out there who need assistance, please contact myself or Jonathan. We have all the forms, the paperwork, and we continue to send monthly reminders to agencies who are expiring 2 to 3 months out to hopefully get them working on the process. So we do have some medical director changes. Rensselaer Falls Rescue, a change to Dr. Howland. Fort Drum EMS is changing back to Dr. Isaac Mills. And Guilfoyle Ambulance to Dr. Holliday. So with that said, I'm going to ask if there's any discussion on any of those, and then we will do one roll call vote, including all three. Is there any, and all the paperwork has been turned in for all of these. Is there any discussion on those medical director changes?
On the phone.
Silence is golden. I'm not hearing any. I would entertain a motion from one of the physicians to accept these medical director changes as presented.
All motion.
So I have a motion by Dr. Coates, and I didn't see who the other one was. Dr. Gray, maybe?
Dr. Gray.
Yes.
Seconded by Dr. Gray. Jonathan, if you want to just do a roll call with the other folks, if there's no further discussion.
Dr. Cartier,
Yes.
Dr. Coates.
He made the motion.
Okay. Dr. Delaney,
Yes.
Dr. Heiss,
Yes.
Dr. Howland left. Dr. Gray seconded. Dr. Snicer,
Yes.
all in favor.
Okay. All right, so as a notification, our public access defibrillation that we have received. So we have a new one from Antwerp Volunteer Fire Department and an update we received from the Salmon Run Mall. Regional BLS adjuncts, Belleville Volunteer Fire Department, who are they are a BLSFR agency. They have applied for BLS Narcan, BLS albuterol, and BLS CPAP. So I would, and we have all the paperwork on this. Also, Jonathan, were they working on their blood glucometry?
Yes, they're working on their blood glucometry, but they didn't have their paperwork back into me by today, so they got left off the list on that.
Okay. All right. So I would entertain a motion for approval of Belleville Volunteer Fire Department for those 3 adjuncts.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Heiss has made a motion. I have a Second by Maya, I think.
Yes.
Okay. Jonathan, if you want to catch the rest on a roll call.
Dr. Courier,
Yes.
Dr. Coates,
Yes.
Dr. Delaney,
Yes.
Dr. Snicer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, now let's have that dreaded EPCR discussion. So previously, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, our REMAC voted to have all ALSFR and transport agencies become electronic by April of 2021. And by gosh, our agencies have really stepped up to the plate. I'm very proud of them. They have done a tremendous job, and there is our list of what's left that is not electronic as far as transporting an ALS first response agencies go. My
Can I chime
understanding.
in real quick, Ann?
Yep, I think you're going to say what I was about to, but go ahead.
Seaway Valley, Cranberry Lake, and Star Lake are all tentative to go live with electronic by the end of the month. So that'll leave us with just Hammond, Wellesley Island, and West Potsdam.
Which is pretty good. Again, just a great job by all the agencies moving forward with this. So the memo that I sent out today to everybody, to all the agencies, we are going to have further discussion about at the program agency level. But basically, they are no longer going to be sending paper PCRs to our office. And I'm going to actually just skip ahead to this New York State ePCR paper portal. I have talked about this before. It's coming to fruition this week. Interestingly enough, well, I shouldn't say this week. I do believe it will go live. And they have given us this really short time frame to make sure everybody's on board with it. Shouldn't be an issue for us because we only have a couple that need to be on the paper portal. We have not received training on this, so I only know bits and pieces of what I've heard, which will be they will log into ImageTrend, they will have to put in certain data fields, and then they have to scan and upload their PCR directly to the state. That is in place of mailing them to our office. The expectation from the state is that each PCR is uploaded within 24 hours of the call, which is going to be a huge change for them because they mailed them monthly. And I know that we may have some that have a little bit of a struggle with that. But we're going to start working with those agencies and helping them. There was a change to the documentation, the schematron, so the way you document things being planned, that was going to go in effect on the 1st or the 2nd of February as well. That has been delayed until April, but they have developed 2 free portals, one for certified and ALSFRs, so that's all your transport certified agencies and ALSFRs have a portal or a free platform that they can utilize for electronic documentation. So those few agencies could potentially get on a system for free through the state, but there are limitations to that free portal. The limitations being the data will not go into our regional bridge, so we will once again be back to having fragmented data. Secondly, the data will not transfer into Hospital Hub, so if they are a transporting agency, they are going to have to ensure the PCR gets to the hospital in whatever form or fashion they so choose, and the hospital agrees to. And third, if they want any additions, there will be a fee to that. So for example, right now our regional program for direct entry includes the billing portal. So our agencies can submit stuff directly to the their billing companies if they bill. This will not. If you want to be able to use the offline or the field version without internet, the state free portal will not offer that. Our regional one does. Those are some of the bigger things that differentiate between what we've offered as a region and what the free state platform offers, because most of the agencies don't necessarily understand that. And there's a BLSFR platform where they're expecting all of the BLSFR first response agencies who want to remain in the CME program for renewal to be submitting electronically as well. One of the biggest challenges is they gave us a time frame that they want this completed by March 31st, which is an unrealistic time frame, especially since between Central New York, North Country EMS, and Mid-State EMS, we have most of the BLSFRs in the state. Second concern, and I had a long discussion with Debbie regarding this today, we are worried that our BLSFR folks may just say forget it and not continue. So that's a huge concern we're going to be monitoring and trying to work through, because we can't afford in the rural area to lose some of these BLSFR entities who can get to a patient while they wait the 15 minutes due to geography for an ambulance to get there. So I've talked for what feels like an eternity. Jonathan, is there anything I missed in that EPCR discussion, or Debbie?
I don't believe so. As the guy who lives in the data the most, I just find it incredibly frustrating that now the data is going to be all spread out all over the place again. And just as you learn one set of data dictionary, they're coming out with another one that we're going to have to relearn all over again. And it just makes getting any data that's meaningful very difficult. And it's just frustrating.
I plan on, we're going to have a discussion of this at the REMSCO, and it is my hope that the REMSCO will support a letter going to the state telling them, yes, we agree with what you want, but we need to slow this train down a little bit, asking agencies to by February 28th commit to one of the three things, when some of them may not even be meeting because of the COVID. And I want to make sure that we're doing what's best for our patients. And again, as Ann had said, we can't afford to lose any first responder agencies. Speaking from a purely selfish standpoint, South Jeff covers 252 square miles. And if it wasn't for our first responders, we would be on the scene a lot with doing CPR and resuscitative efforts, because by the time we get there, it just would be too late. So yes, it's a great idea, but asking people to commit by February 28th and then implement by March 31st is not realistic. Yes, we know they've been talking about that, but they've been talking about a lot of things. So, we're still waiting for some policies from the COVID that haven't come to fruition. So I just think that yes, we think it's a good idea, but we've got to slow this down and make sure that we don't lose any agencies because of this.
Absolutely. And many of the volunteer fire departments, as you said, will not even have a meeting based on regular schedules, again, until after February 28th. So,
And this is Paul.
yes.
What is the hang up given these first responder agencies the ability to electronically submit that to the hospitals? I'm looking at some of these outlying areas that for somebody to hand carry that in, it's just not going to happen. That's an easy fix if they would just allow that transmission.
So if they use the free hub, the free portal for the EPCR, it just means that they will have to fax it to the hospital. And that's not, the BLSFRs don't have to do that. The BLSFRs don't have the requirement that the transporting agencies do. The BLSFRs are required to give it to the transporting agency. But does that make sense? Or did I
Yes, it does.
misunderstand the question?
Yep. Thank you.
Secondly, we will no longer receive PCRs, paper PCRs, as of March, the end of March. So if they want them, they would have to request them from the state. So there's been some discussion, some folks may do some duplicate copies, have them made of the PCR, or they'll have to just print a PDF copy and then put it in that way. So there's more to come on that. We are, from the program agency perspective, there's a group of us, we are going to push back on the timelines as well. Any other questions on the whole EPCR stuff coming? Hearing none, we're tentatively going to be doing a 2021 EMS Leadership Conference. We've taken on some more partners there. We're working with a whole group of AHECs, not just the Northern AHEC now, and trying to work some plans to do that virtually. There'll be more to come on that. Jonathan, EM Resource.
We're continuing to work forward with the project. We're having bi-monthly meetings now with Javari to help with engagement and integration. We had a very good meeting with both LifeNet of New York and Mercy Flight Central to begin integrating air medical statuses into the system as real time as we possibly can. So we're still plugging along. I'm going to be sending out emails again this week to agencies to start getting their third-party vendor for their Active 911s, IM respondings, those kind of software products into the system. So that way, when one of our Jefferson County hospitals, and now St. Lawrence and Lewis as well are using it, hospitals put themselves on diversion, it will push the notification to these third-party vendors and get that information out to the responders faster. This won't change any policies with county dispatch or anything like that, but at least it's a step in the right direction to getting the information out quicker. And that's all I got right now, Ann. Did I miss anything?
No, sounds good. We did get a new contract. It's decreased from last year's for opioid prevention program. And I say we got a contract. It's not finalized, nor have we got payment off the last contract either. So I'll leave it at that. But it does mean hopefully we'll still be able to get Narcan for our first responders. So as Debbie had referred to earlier, we had written a letter to the CMAC and SEMSCO, and that letter, they actually said had some good points in it regarding a motion they'd made a year and a half ago to change the AEMT to the national curriculum, which would take intubation out for our advanced level or AEMT providers. Because the national curriculum is not finalized, it also had some other effects like taking out EPI 1 in 10,000 in cardiac arrest for AEMTs. So we did write a letter, it was addressed, and they did put a stay on the process and that nothing would be changed until the Bureau got their work done. so that the protocols would be updated, the curriculum would be updated, everything else that needs tests, everything that needed to be updated were done. So that was, you know, a very good thing that they addressed that. Debbie, did you want to talk any more about that?
No, I just, it was nice to see that we sent it and it was shared and that input was taken that we had provided. So I'm hoping that maybe again the same thing with the BLS first responders and making those changes, that hopefully we can be successful with that.
So real quick, I do have a REMSCO committee put together that's working on some of the challenges the agencies are facing with the cost of drugs because they have to be purchased in lots. And I'm continuing to work with Clarkson University on setting up a course sponsor, and a special thank you to Jefferson County for sponsoring courses in the St. Lawrence County area until such a time the state decides to approve course sponsor applications. I will tell you that the resources that Clarkson has for EMS education are beyond fabulous. You know, including a vehicle inside, a fully set up apartment, 2 sim mannequins with control rooms. It's just spectacular. So hopefully you'll soon to see an application coming to the REMAC REMSCO for approval of that when we get moved farther along with the state. Any questions for the program agency? All right. Hearing none, let's move on to the stroke policy statement. Dr. Cartier had sent an update. Did everybody have a chance to review that? I sent that out, I think, Friday-ish. And basically, the current stroke policy statement we have was from 2017 when they had changed it to 5 hours to get to a stroke center, and then they've changed it back since then. Or the protocol was changed to 5 hours. And we realized that that would take many of our patients out of the window for stroke and ensure that they get to a hospital that can do TPA, that they're not bypassing it. Did everybody get a chance to look at that? Dr. Cartier, do you want to add any information regarding your changes and updates? It just kind of a general overall.
Yeah, sure. Give me just a moment. I'll put on my video so you guys can see me. Welcome to my basement. So yeah, I don't remember why exactly I was looking at this policy statement, but the policy statement as written reflects parts of the protocol that have been subsequently changed, like Ann was saying. So the change to the 2019 protocol reduced that time frame to 3.5 hours. So basically the whole policy statement for the region was out of date. I took a little bit of time to go through the AHA recommendations to put together a new policy statement for the region, and also looking at the current protocol, it does allow for regional designation of destinations for stroke as well. So long story short, AHA is recommending that patients go to the closest TPA capable facility, which is in kind of contravention to the state protocol, which says a Department of Health designated stroke center. We have more TPA capable facilities in the region than designated stroke centers. Right now, our only designated stroke center that's listed on the Department of Health website is Samaritan as a primary stroke center. But in addition, we have, Canton, Potsdam, Governor, a lot of these other places are capable of giving TPA. So long story short, AHA wants people to go with a stroke to the closest TPA capable facility, especially if they're within time frame. But they also do recommend that there be a regional protocol in place that allows for transport to a comprehensive stroke center if a patient's not going to be eligible for TPA, especially considering time frame. As we're aware, time frame for TPA has been increased to 4.5 hours for selected groups, And then endovascular therapies or thrombectomies are useful up to 24 hours. So I've changed, I wrote the policy statement to basically say that any patient with a suspected ischemic stroke that's within 3.5 hours of last known well time be transported to the closest TPA capable facility. Any patient with a suspected ischemic stroke with more than 3.5 hours since last known well and a FAST-TD score of 4 or greater, the EMS providers should consider transport directly to a comprehensive stroke center. And then patients with a greater than 3.5 hour time frame from last known well, but a FAST-TD score of 3 or less, the providers may consider transport directly to a comprehensive stroke center. And obviously, online medical control can alter any of these recommendations. But trying to provide a little bit more ability for our EMS personnel to go to the closest appropriate facility without necessarily having to get an order, making sure that we're getting TPA on board as quickly as possible for appropriate selected patients. But at the same time, recognizing that there are patients that are going to be better served going directly to a comprehensive stroke center for possible thrombectomy, especially if there's an increased likelihood of large vessel occlusion. So that was the emphasis behind doing this policy change, but I'm happy to try to address any questions or anything on this.
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Cardio? Paul, did you have something? Does anybody have any discussion on the protocol that was set out for review? Or excuse me, policy statement? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Dr. Sneisser made a motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Second by Dr. Heiss. Any further discussion? All in favor? Jonathan, roll. Whoops, sorry. I'm so used to doing that in a regular meeting. Jonathan, will you do a quick roll call vote?
Yep. Dr. Cartier,
Yes.
Dr. Coates,
Yes.
Dr. Delaney,
Yes.
Dr. Howland's not here, Dr. Gray,
Yes.
and the other two were the motion passes.
All right, we will get that prettied up and on the letterhead or policy statement and sent out within the next week or so. Thank you. All right. Any other new business? All right, so hearing none, I'm going to move on to Dr. Holliday's application. So Dr. Holliday, is he still on?
I am.
All right, so I don't know. You know, normally when we meet in person, we ask the person to kind of step out of the room and then bring them back in. So we're pretty much done with most of our business. If you want to give our membership a moment to address your application, and then I will be back in touch with you. If
Okay,
that works.
I will. Yeah, I will leave the call.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks everybody. I wasn't quite sure how to deal with that because we usually ask them. I don't foresee there being an issue, but first off, I would entertain a motion for approval for Dr. Holliday.
I make a motion to Dr. Holliday.
Okay. We had a motion by
I'll
Dr.
second it.
A second by Dr. Snyder. I'm
Yep.
not sure.
Yep.
All right, Jonathan, do your roll call vote.
Dr. Cartier,
Yes.
Dr. Coates,
Yes.
Dr. Delaney,
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes.
The remaining two were the motion and second. All in favor?
Okay. Motion approved. So I have one other item of new business, which is expiration dates of members. We had extended them. So that would have put everybody who expired 4 of 2020 would have then been 4 of 2021. So I'm just giving you a heads up. The following people's REMAC membership will expire on 4 of 2021. So they'll be at the next meeting. And we will put out a request to see if there's others that are interested. And we would also, if you're interested in staying on, you can resubmit for it as well. But it will be Bobby Simpson. So we'll be looking for a BLS provider in Jefferson County. It is Matt Yelton. And we have all ALS, so I'm guessing we really would like some BLS representation out of Lewis County. And the other one is Jennifer Hines and Mark Devers. So we'll be looking for an ALS, a CIC, and a BLS provider for St. Lawrence County. So just giving you a heads up on that as we move forward based on the standard operating guidelines that were approved. Any other new business? All right, so I haven't heard anybody and I don't see anything in the chat. So we did have a QA/QI case, which is in process. The state was involved in it and remediation is being done currently. And most of it revolves around airway. So having airway classes are good in recognition of hypoxia. And John Morrissey, do you have anything for the good of the order?
Ann, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. A couple of things, just to make you aware. SUNY Canton is in vaccination. SUNY correction in Canton, up in Potsdam at SUNY Potsdam. We have an ALS ambulance standing by, dedicated to the immunization site up there. Initially, the Canton Rescue was doing it. It's now being done by Governor. And that resource is going on, and we anticipate that site to be active for probably well into the summer. At this point, it's going to then depend on how much vaccine is available out of the feds. Please, I can't stress it enough. We've had a couple of services that are turning in stuff to Albany and mailing stuff into Albany for research with narcotics or research. Please, please send them trackable if you do that. Please, please get copies. Please understand we can now accept electronic signatures and facsimiles. So if you send copies down to our office as well, we can send you receipts back that you've got it immediately, responding to the emails and stuff, so we can do it that way. So that way people don't lapse. I would strongly encourage that. The other thing is, please reminding local docs as agency medical directors, if you have any QA concerns or need technical assistance related to remediation or specialty care situations, please feel free to reach out, and we'll work through those for you on a case-by-case basis. And to report, and thank you, Ann.
All right. If there's no other new business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So I can go get my class started.
I make a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Okay, Maya, who seconded that? Dr. Coates.
I'll second.
Okay. Oh, we'll give it to Dr. Cartier. Okay. So we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Stay
Thank you.
warm.
Thank you.